Welcome everyone to another episode of the Your Little Castle Show. It is my honor to work with, with small business owners. They're the lifeblood of the community and in our country, I really believe. If you really add that up in terms of what percentage of the businesses out there, everybody thinks big corporations are like 90%, not even close. It's like they're like 10%. The small businesses support the big corporations. And so we like to highlight those leaders. So this particular episode, I got to know Jessica a little bit, and we talked about business is tough. That's for sure. Would you agree with that, Jessica?
Agreed.
And the fail rate on most businesses is like 80%.
Lots of challenges.
There's lots of things to overcome and things that you have to figure out and sort out. And so when we start getting into that kind of a discussion, when we initially were introduced to you, Manny's in the studio today, introduced us, and Manny and I are working together on a lot of stuff now. But the truth is, as I switch over to our other camera, there you go. The truth is, it is difficult. And so many times when you're not the owner, you're working for someone, there are things you have to learn about the business, and you really become invested in the company, if you will. And
yes.
sometimes you're chipping in, like buying lunch and doing whatever, and sometimes whatever goes on from there. Then the hurdles come about, and you say, hey, we got to figure this thing out. So when I heard about how you really came up with a solution for a problem with a company that was, like a lot of companies, going through hurdles, going through struggles, through things that they had to overcome to stay in business, like 80% of the time it doesn't work out. It's the 20% that do. And so that's a high ratio of failure. But you saw an opportunity to help and jumped in. And we're just excited to have you on the show to kind of talk about that and the success that you've developed from that.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, everybody, it's Jessica Schleicher.
Schleicher.
Did I said it right?
Yes, you got it.
I should be able to say that correctly because I have a German heritage last name. Is that a German heritage?
German, yes.
Heritage, and so I'm American. My heritage was from Germany. But we talk about the people that have been leaders in our community. So we're going to do that. But first, we're going to share with everybody behind us quickly, Carroll House Furniture, because you like nice things in your little castle, which is the title of our show, right? And so with that, we like to give a shout out to those guys. So I'm going to flip over here, and we produce this show live in the studio while we're here. And so there's a little bit about Carroll House and a little bit on the other wall about Carroll House. Our other big sponsor, USA Mortgage. And if this all would not happen without the sponsors that we have that help. They want to benefit from what we offer, and we want to help them be highlighted. But I'm a licensed loan officer. You can see the information on the screen, and it shows up at the end of the show for our NMLS information, because we have to share that with everyone as soon as we mention anything about an association. And I'm actually employed by USA Mortgage as part of what I do. So we want to help the community, and we're going to do that by sharing the excitement that comes from the leaders who are all over the country, but mostly in the Midwest here. We've interviewed people from LA and New York and Chicago and St. Louis, where most of our guests come from, because that's where we're based. But take a look here. Service Central Glass and Door. We've got your Facebook page up on the wall over here, and then your website. Great looking website. I love this website because it looks cool. You're a glass company, so these TVs, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't a glass window behind me. This is a series of televisions. It's called a TV wall. And when you've got the little, we put this together, there's 9 of them. They look like windows, and like with glass behind it, it looks like we're sitting at the 15th floor of a big building somewhere when you've got great looking windows. So congratulations, great job.
Thank you.
And let's talk a little bit about, like I found was most interesting about what you talked about was how you took the opportunity with something where you saw there was a definite need to help make things go better, and turned it into something, and now you have your own company that you've run now for 3 years. Tell me about how that got started and why you decided to do that.
Well, at the time I was working for another glass company based here in St. Louis, and I was an employee and running a portion of their business. And unfortunately, they went out of business, but obviously there was some time for that to take place. And I saw an opportunity to create my own business. I had kind of a small investment to help out with the company I was working for. And unfortunately, since they were kind of going out of business, I had the opportunity to sort of purchase my book of business.
Okay, well, that's a interesting strategy to get involved with a company, because
It was interesting, yes.
I mean, how many people say I can essentially buy into the business kind of thing, and then own the book of business that you were probably working on, right?
Yes.
I understand that. Most
Yes,
people, I
lots
like,
of work.
in our pregame prep, we talked about how effectively you talked about the book of business, and that's really why a lot of people, us salespeople, I've been a technical person who just sat behind a desk in a cubicle for many years at a little brewery based in St. Louis for most of that time, a little bit for Citicorp, a little bit 10 years at Anheuser-Busch. And then I decided to get out back into the sales world. I was selling computers while I was going to grad school for Circuit City, which actually paid pretty nicely if you knew how to sell these things that were $2,000 or $3,000.
I bet it did.
But I learned that when you develop relationships, essentially when they hire a salesperson, they're looking for that salesperson to bring in their contacts and the people that they know and the relationships they've developed. And so somebody like yourself who's worked hard, worked on that as an employee, now developed that and said, hey, let's take this thing over and make this thing bigger. I think I can do this.
Yeah,
tell me about that.
The transfer of it was sort of easy because I was the face of that company for my customers at that time. So they were actually kind of excited for me to have my own company, and they really work with me and the people that worked in that area. So it wasn't just me, obviously. There was a staff that was dedicated to the portion of that business that I was managing. So we all basically moved over to the new company, or my new company, Service Central Glass and Door. So a lot of the customers were very excited for the opportunity.
Well, and again, putting the time and energy and effort into something like that is what makes the world go round, if you ask me.
Yes.
And most people understand that the tax revenue generated, the jobs that are created, all come from small businesses. So that's why we always want to highlight the small businesses, because they're the ones making it really happen. The other benefit a lot of people do realize that comes from small businesses is they're the innovators, right? The big corporations find the innovators and then buy them, right?
Yes.
Just ask Google. I think they buy like 17 companies a day, or something like that. And it's really because where they're out there being creative and doing something new, they not have all the resources that a big company has. They say, hey, that's a real neat product. That's a neat service that people need. Mm-hmm. We're going to buy them. So you effectively said, let's keep it going from small business to small business. You guys need some help. I see an opportunity. Instead of us going up and selling some big company, let's keep our thing here going. And now you've done it for 3 years.
Yes.
Tell me about some of the success and how that's been so exciting for you. And we got into some interesting discussion. Now it's almost like, what were we talking about? But it was deep stuff about how you make it happen in the current culture and the world, mm-hmm. the way the world is, and all the hurdles that have to come over. And that's just I feel like, oh, it's the most difficult time in the history of the world to start a business because of whatever. I'm like, no, when there was like people running around with axes in the medieval times, that was the worst time to live on this. They just killed you if they didn't
Very
like
volatile.
you, right? Here it's a little more difficult. They don't. I made a joke with my dad years ago. These days they don't just kill people; they just make it difficult on you,
yes.
right? And that's because it's competition, and the competition forces people to do better. And so other places in the world, and historically, I'm getting kind of weird with our conversation here, but it was a much more difficult, dark world. A lot of people. So it's actually pretty good. That's what I'm trying to paint the picture of.
Yes.
And so it gives an opportunity for somebody like yourself to turn around and do something like this. Tell me more about the path that led you here and why you're doing this thing and why you think you've made it a success.
Well, like I said, I was working for a glass company, so naturally, and I was working there, I don't know, it was maybe 5 years or so at the time when Service Central was generated. And so naturally, I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to just stick with glass business because my customer base is accustomed to us doing glass work for them, aluminum frames, hardware, sealant work, things like that. So, and then the people that I worked with in my department, per se, were essentially losing their jobs. So I already knew the skill level. I knew the people very personally because we were a small group. So naturally, I'm like, well, why don't you just come work for me? And so I started building from there because I had a lot of insight on, the inner workings, and could basically assemble a staff just from the people that were losing their jobs. And it really came together beautifully.
Well, and that's where it does take some creativity. People think about business as a matter of it's just straight up. This is how you do it, get it done, and this is the way it's always been done. And that's kind of what I think causes most businesses to fail, because
Agreed.
they're just like, this is how you do it. I mean, I guess. Wow, here's another tangent to our discussion. If you agree with me here, the guys and gals who've run businesses in the past, they're very good at what they do. I'll say it like this to add to that. One of my best friends owns a roofing company. He says, Carter, we're no longer roofing companies. We are marketing companies who sell roofs.
Yes.
Because it used to be, and the first time we've had this discussion on this show, this specific to this, that it used to be Yellow Pages or all the big companies. And that was kind of what separated everybody. Yellow Pages did this thing in the Yellow Pages, and if you were in the Yellow Pages, word of mouth, Yellow Pages, a couple little things, go to charity events, etc. Now it's smaller businesses have the opportunity to do mass media, if you will, like this new thing called Facebook.
Yes.
Google.
Instagram.
Go down the list. Twitter.
LinkedIn.
There you go. And so now you have the obligation, or else you get beat out by the guys who are the smaller businesses who are doing this.
Right.
It's the whole existence for this show, by the way, because we want to highlight these leaders. We say, hey, your interview went great. Here's a copy of it. Go put it out there. Share it with people. Some people will watch it when it airs on ABC, but a lot of people are going to watch it later on your website or your social media. And that's what we really want to highlight. So when we reached out to you, I said, Manny, I love what you're doing in the community. Who do you know as some leaders in the community? So you're the first one he brought up.
Oh, well, thank you, Manny.
And that's kind of neat for what we're trying to accomplish here. Tell me a little bit about your history. What are some of the hobbies? And we go off to the background a little bit so people understand a little bit more about why you got into this. How did this lead to it? Or was it just some random thing that fell in your lap? But what do you enjoy? And we talked about you ride horses too. That's kind of
I do. I wish I could ride more. Again, it's it's a time thing. First is business and take care of that, and then I guess a hobby of mine. I have a lot of animals. I love animals.
Okay.
Love them. Really, any animal.
If it's furry or something that people can take care of.
But you have to take care of these animals.
Right. Yeah.
They have to have a proper place to live, a proper place to eat, proper feed, hygiene, just all over health-wise. So I guess in a way that's a hobby, but I enjoy it. They make me happy. So, and I have some property and a house. I live near my parents, which were about an hour west of St. Louis. And so I have property to take care of also, which that gives me space for animals.
Right.
And so sometimes I have to be like, no, you don't need more chickens. No, you don't need more goats.
You have chickens.
I have chickens. I have like 30 chickens, 7 goats, 3 horses, a mini mule, 3 cats, and 7 dogs.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I think that's it.
you're also a farmer, it sounds like, as well.
Well, they're not really like income producing, they're pets.
They're pets. It's like 70 pets. I mean, when you add it all together.
I know.
How many chickens did you say?
30.
Are chickens kind of interactive too?
Yes.
You get to, they're not just these crazy birds.
No, when I come out to collect the eggs or feed them, they come running out to greet me.
They say, here comes the food, everybody.
Here comes the food lady.
Well, they say there's Pavlov, I think it was, that had his study of dogs. Essentially, it's like you could control that animal based on food. Right?
Yes. Now, a lot of my employees and friends love the eggs, though.
I would say so.
Apparently, they're a hot commodity here lately.
Right. The price of eggs has gone up 700% or something like that.
Right.
But so yeah, I mean, you do benefit from this a little bit to have your own. If there was a craziness in our world and somebody had to say, "Who can get us some eggs?" You've got them right there at your.
I don't really have them for the eggs. I mean, the eggs are a great benefit from having the chickens. However, they are very high tick consumers, and when you live not in in kind of a wooded or even just grassy area, I had a lot of ticks when I moved there. So I'm like, I'll just get some chickens and they'll take care of the ticks. Sure enough, they do.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, I'd never heard that side bend. If we're getting into an interesting discussion, we're going to talk a lot more exciting stuff about business here in a minute. But you learn a little bit from everybody, just in
Right.
general discussion. And the reason that one hit me a little bit is I have a couple very high profile friends that I'm not that good. I mean, but people that I was working in the organization, and so became friends with them, and like they got bit by a tick and got
You can get very sick.
Lyme disease, and that is a horrible thing to go through because it like
Yes.
can be debilitating. Like you
Yes.
can't function, you can't hardly, you're alive, but you can barely can't see. Okay, I don't know all the details, but I
Yes.
remember they used to talk about how our leader, who I won't name, like he's gonna wear sunglasses during the interview or the Zoom call or whatever we were doing here, and it's like that's kind of stuff. So anyway, side benefit of chickens, everybody. All right, so I guess I'd throw that back in throw it back into the business discussion, which I'm trying to do here. Right, is you're always looking for some way to benefit, to improve, to do better, and you found an easy solution for an issue that you had, and that's what business people do, right?
Yes.
They find solutions for problems, and that's what we
Yes.
talked about pregame a little bit too. Business owners are essentially responsible for fixing everything.
Yes. Problem solvers.
Problem solvers. Talk about that if you would for a minute.
Well, yeah, I spent a lot of my time problem solving, and it could be really anything. But being a business owner, in my mind, I am ultimately responsible. So no matter what issue comes up, problem, whatnot, I feel that I'm responsible to help develop a solution. Now, whether I come up with a solution or I find someone to help us find the solution, I feel like it's my responsibility. I can't place that on someone else ultimately. And that's just kind of how I view problem solving. And it's being resourceful as well. Going to, whether it be vendors, employees, people in the business, whomever, just asking for an opinion or asking for help or an experience, or has this ever happened to you? Have you ever come across this before? And just being brave enough to ask the question and to be upfront.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for what it is that separates what's weird about us business owners, I'm a business owner again myself here, and it's just you are willing to take on the challenge to do anything and to bust through walls. I'll never forget, I had a company I was working with had me take some kind of a psychological test. And I hadn't done that since I worked at Anheuser-Busch, and I'd done this before. I'm like, I'll do whatever, man.
So what was the outcome?
And they said, how quickly can we sign you up? Because you will run through brick walls, according to our psychological analysis. and I don't think that's anything, I don't know, it's almost a hurdle to overcome, because people know that you're the guy that will get things done no matter what. And then a lot of people, there's the 80-20 rule. Have you heard about the 80-20 rule?
What is
The
it?
Pareto rule. It's essentially 80% of the world kind of just does the work, and kind of, you tell them what to do and they get it done. 20% is the one who get it done, and they organize and they put things together. So that's the Pareto rule. It's actually very specific to that. It's a ratio of a pi r squared thing or whatever, but it breaks down to essentially 80-20. And there's 80% of the people that, like, they're not programmed that way. And God made it that way.
Or they just don't want to, and that's okay.
Yeah,
because
tell me what they'd like to manage.
Not everybody can be a leader. Yes.
Tell me about that.
Agreed. I feel that I recognize the personality traits and different, I don't want to say like skill level, but maybe like quality of skills, or just a set of skills in a person, like what they're good at, what they're not good at, and just recognizing that in my employees and knowing where they are going to do their best. Because a lot of it too is just positive reinforcement, making people feel good about themselves, allowing people to, enjoy what they do. And I feel like a lot of that comes along with placing them somewhere or in, what they're doing, that they enjoy it or that they're good at, because naturally they'll like it if they're very good at it. Or placing people together, pairing them. Personalities have a lot to do with the success of anything. And for me, it's just the success of a job. So when a certain job comes up, whatever scope it might be, I'm like, oh, who do we have available, first off? And then secondly, who would be good at it, knowing that they really enjoy doing XYZ. And then if they need it, if we have to have 2 people on it, and then you pair the people according to how they work well together. And my staff, they all work together really well, but there are, pairs and scopes of work that this group might do really, really good together. And what it does is it creates success in the project, which is success for the customer and their project. And then all around, it's just a more positive experience.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we do the show, so that we can share some of the in-depth tips. I haven't anybody go that deep on that particular topic for sure. I don't want to say all the rest of my guests didn't know what they were doing. They didn't talk about that. No, we've talked about all kinds of other things, and just every guest brings some kind of insightful perspective to share about how you, personalities, man. We hadn't got into that stuff.
Personalities.
And that can be a major conflict. I know that was interesting, and I won't say the name of the gal. I'll never forget, though. They happened to pick that. All of us took this psychological test that they've done for many years. I forget the name of it, but effectively they said, now we're going to bring up to the front of the room, as we went to a training out at Soccer Park, because Anheuser-Busch owns Soccer Park. I think that's where we were at. And they said, and this is a separate company, so I don't blame Anheuser-Busch. And it's whatever. It's just, we're just learning, and and it's good to know these things. I'm saying Anheuser-Busch is on the ball because of the same things you're talking about. And they said, here's somebody who is this type of personality, and they picked me. And here's somebody who is the opposite. And they put us up at the front of the room and said, now you guys have a discussion.
Yeah, see what comes about with this.
And I won't even get any more specific than that. But there was later things happened, and that person ended up not being with the company because of a bad decision, I found out. It was kind of sad. And it's just wow, I wonder if that was something that came out of the personality. And it really stemmed from another issue where somebody was like, why did they get to do this and I didn't, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy cow, the personality. And I don't blame, I felt kind of sad. I'm like, that person was a great person, but there was some trait, and where did that trait come about? And was that relative to this? I mean, I don't know, but it led to something else. They can identify these kinds of things, is just what I'm saying. And so who it is works well best with each other, and that's what you've got to identify. I don't hear business owners talk about that at all.
I mean, can imagine,
how important
imagine you and that person being put together, working shoulder to shoulder, and being a team, and you're installing heavy things, and you're coming across problems, and just different things that you have to work through, and trying to bring that together. That's not necessarily setting up for success. So I try to set up projects for success, and every little thing matters.
And back to
the big thing are the people.
And that's why I put the cowboy hat on everybody. Now we're talking about the community-based stuff that really affects people's lives and allows for the success of other people, not just because you gave them a job, but you're looking out for their career and the best benefit for them long term.
Yes.
And that benefits you ultimately. And it's that theory. Tell me if you agree with the theory. Is if when you take care of other people, then good things happen for you. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. I'm going to share on the wall here. We're almost done with the first half hour, everybody. We do this show in segments, effectively saying, hey, we're going to talk about whatever we can get through with regard to the main part of the business and why you do this and what sets you apart and how you do things and run things. And then the second half, as we talk with Jessica, we talk about all the in-depth stuff. So if you're only seeing the first half of the show, do check out the full recording, because we're going to just keep rolling here in a minute, and you'll just see me cut, and I'll edit the end of it and put it back to the 28-minute, 30-second mark, and then send it off to ABC. But the whole show has a lot more information on it. And with as much knowledge as Jessica has here, we might talk for 4 or 5 hours. Depends. I do have another meeting, so does she, I think. But thank you so much for taking the time. Let's show. I put up on the wall. We're going to browse through your website just a bit, if that's all right with you, because we talked about doing that. And so here it is up on the wall. Tell me about some of the important parts of your website that you definitely want people to take a look at. And I know we looked at your services. Is that where should we?
I would say the most important part is obviously our services. We have our main bulk of business, our commercial services. But we also do residential work, and we call it fabrication services, where we can fabricate pieces of glass in-house, like glass tabletops, shelves, mirrors, things of that sort. We can actually fabricate in our shop for customers.
Okay, so that was the commercial page. I'm going to pull up that fabrication page as you mentioned it there. That's commercial. Here's fabrication. And that's a pretty cool service to offer, because how many people have we were joking here. I'll share with you guys a little bit. I hit my rings on the glass, and I'm like, man, I don't want to break this. Beloved Brooke Dubman might have to buy another table over there. But she's like, I can fix that.
I can fix that for you.
But that's a lot cheaper than buying a $1,400 table if you just got to replace it.
Like one piece of glass, it might be less than the table. Sometimes it can be more expensive than the table, but it just depends. We'd have to cost it for you.
Right. And just do an analysis, give us the information,
Yes.
and then let us make a decision. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff you get to. And here's the residential stuff, and you do that as well.
Yes. Now, back to the point of people. I can have all the equipment, I can have all the materials, but when it comes to fabrication, you have to have the people that know what to do.
Skills.
Their skills.
Yeah. Okay.
And all of my staff or my field crew, fabrication crew are highly skilled. And it's amazing what they can do. It really is.
That's important. I want to touch on something that led to that, because behind you have on the other wall, I'm going to put that up for everybody. We put up your BBB. You're A+ rated. That's important for people to understand. So good job doing that. They don't just hand that out. I know a little bit about how that works, and to be A+ rated on the BBB is important. Also wanted to give everybody a quick glance, and if somebody noticed, I was poking around on your Facebook page behind you right there, but you got some good content out there. So you do have a Facebook presence too, and people can find you and get through to you there as well. And it's just good to know that you have all the social media that is necessary. I'm clicking on my screen over there. That's the wrong screen. I got multiple screens, right? And good information that people can find you all along the way. And then I'll throw up on the page here real quick. You are on LinkedIn, and so somebody wants to find you on LinkedIn here. I've got some messages popping up there. You can read them if you want to. But get a hold of Jessica on LinkedIn. A lot of followers and people that are connected with you there follow you and what you do. So back with that. So as we continue on here, because we're about done with the first segment here, our 28-minute, 30-second mark is up in about 30 seconds. Tell me what we're going to talk about. We talked a little bit about your reviews there. You've got a lot of people that favor you, the Better Business Bureau. You're commercial based mostly for what you do.
Mostly commercial.
So
yes.
Not going to have as many of the residential type reviews, because that's not what you do as much of. But
we'll do residential showers, glass replacements in residential windows, gym, mirrors, wine rooms, things of that sort.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Those are great. It's great to have somebody in the glass business, as I find out how much that goes for. All right, everybody, stay tuned. We're at that mark now where we're going to switch over to our full broadcast. Check it out. Watch us on our social media, if you will, and you can go to click on the links to those from our website, yourlittlecastle.com. All right, everybody, stay tuned for more. This is the Your Little Castle Show. Giddy up.